Om Gananam Tva Ganapatigum Havamahe Pamashravastamam Jyeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashrunvannotibhisida Sadanam Shri Mahaganadhipataye Namaham Ramaya Ramabhadraya Ramachandraya Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha Kujantam Rama Rameti Madhuram Madhuraksharam Aruhya Kavita Shakham Vande Valmiki Kokilam Manojabam Marutatulya Vegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Varishtham Vatatmajam Vanarayothamukhyam Shri Ramadutam Shirasa Namami. You may say following me, tatō yuddha pariśrāntaṃ samarē chintayāsthitam rāvaṇaṃ chāgratō dṛṣṭvā yuddhāya samupasthitam daivataiścha samāgamya dṛṣṭumabhyāgatō raṇam upāgamyābravīdrāmaṃ agastyō bhagavān ṛṣiḥ. So we said two verses because it makes one sentence. Normally one verse is one sentence, but here it is two verses together make one sentence. Now, this is a small canto in Sanskrit called Sargaha from Valmiki Ramayana. Normally, people do not read Valmiki's Ramayana. They read all kinds of other Ramayanas. And in the Hindi heartland, Ramayana means Tulasi Ramayana, not Valmiki Ramayana. And in other places, they go for other Ramayanas, not so much Valmiki Ramayana. Ramayanam original is Valmiki Ramayana. And so as part of this Āditya Hṛdayam study, I want to discuss two things in addition to the text. Of course, I will be discussing text only, but in addition to the text, as part of introduction today and also on a daily basis, I will be discussing two more things. One is the Ramayanam and its status in the scriptural literature of India. Valmiki's Ramayana, with particular emphasis on it. And also the meaning and significance of upāsana in life. Upāsana, it is not a very popular word, but you can correspond it with the word bhakti. Bhakti is more popular. But in the Vedic literature and in the context of Ramayana, the word bhakti is not that relevant. It is the upāsana. Later, the word upāsana is replaced by the word bhakti, and that became more popular. And today, if you say upāsana, many people may not even understand it. They are not at least familiar with it. But the word bhakti is very familiar. And having said that, it is necessary to understand the upāsana. What is upāsana? Because in understanding upāsana, we will be knowing the bhakti, which is the more popular thing. Generally, it is necessary to understand because bhakti as it is practiced in the popular religion is not entirely satisfactory. That's why it is a bit diluted or sometimes even adulterated or corrupted. That is also possible. You can see such a trends in the popular religion. But we are not people of popular religion. We are people of true religion. Therefore, it is imperative for us to understand what is this bhakti, the right understanding of bhakti as it is presented in Gita, etc. So, and which corresponds to upāsana in the context of Aditya Hṛdayam. Therefore, understanding of upasana is also important for us, the students of Ramayana, students of Vedanta. Then coming to Ramayanam, you see, you should have a historic perspective also of the scriptural literature. The scriptural literature of Hindu Dharma, in particular of India, begins with Vedas. People always talk of Vedas, they say Veda, and they pay their obeisance to Vedas. They declare their allegiance to Vedas, all without knowing what Veda is. So it becomes kind of a fashion to speak of Vedas, not really understanding what the blessed thing Veda is. Therefore, it will be necessary to understand some about Vedas also. That is the first beginning of the scriptural literature. We can say, the scriptural literature begins with Vedas, 4 of them. Then comes itihasas, the epics, 2 of them. The glory of India is that it has given 2 epics to the world. You do not have many epics in the world. 2 are from India and 2 more, probably 2 more. The Iliad and Homer, I suppose. These are 2 more epics we see in the Europe. That is the end of epics. You do not have many epics. And the epics, other 2 epics are small in size, whereas Indian epics, they are very big in size, voluminous. Ramayanam, it runs into 24,000 verses, the first epic, historically. So Vedas, and then comes Ramayana. So the first epic. And then after after 1 or 2 millennia, comes Mahabharata, the second epic. And finally, the Mahabharata is followed by Puranic literature, Puranas. And then Puranas are mythological accounts. The entire literature of Purana constitutes what is called mythology. And epics, I will tell about the epics, but Puranas are the mythological things. And then we have many texts like Smrutis, Manusmriti, Parashara Smriti, etc. So these Smriti texts codify the human existence, how people have to live, what are the ethics and morals, etc. So that is the literature which came after Mahabharata. Therefore, broadly, we can divide the scriptural literature in the context of a historic perspective as beginning with Vedas, followed by the 2 epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata, and finally ending in the Puranic or mythological literature. That is the sequence. Therefore, the religion itself undergoes changes accordingly. Therefore, you have the religion which corresponds to Vedic literature. Today, that religion is almost absent, but still in some corners it is there. And in some forms it comes into the popular religion, but mostly it is like fossilized Vedic religion. You see it as a fossil here and there. And it is more or less out of human consciousness. It has become obsolete, you can say that. The public in general, at large, they do not follow the Vedic religion. Because in Vedic religion, they worshipped the gods in the form of nature's forces. For example, sun is the god. That is Aditya Hṛdayam. So it belongs to the Vedic worship, Vedic culture. The moon they worship. And then they worship the nature's forces. Like earth, Prithvi, is a force of nature. Apaha, the waters. Agnihi, the fire. Vayuhu, the wind. Space, not so much. but these forces of nature are worshipped as gods. And then the rain-bearing clouds, the god of rain. Rain is the most important thing in India because India depends upon the monsoon for its food needs. Therefore, the rain god, that is Indraha. And other gods and goddesses associated with the nature, like rivers. All rivers are, they become goddesses because river in Sanskrit is feminine, not in a biological sense. What can be biological sense in that? A river is feminine means it can only be the linguistic sense. So, linguistically it is feminine. But people take biologically. That is the popular religion. That becomes a problem. Therefore, the Ganges, the river Ganga, is a river, and feminine only in the sense that the word is feminine in the language, nothing else. But in the popular culture, so it becomes a lady. So that is how personification happens. There is a beauty in personification, and there are pitfalls also. We may notice all these things. So we will examine all this literature in a very objective way, and a scientific way, and sometimes a kind of academic way also, but not emotional way, but not from the standpoint of popular religion. Okay, you are okay with all that? Therefore, this is how we look at the epic Ramayana, which is between the Vedic literature on one side, earlier to Ramayana, and the Mahabharata, of course, another epic which came later. And then the Puranic literature, which is the basis of popular religion, the religion that we practice today. No harm in having a historic perspective, It is good to know all these things, so that your worship and your practice of religion also becomes more knowledge-based instead of belief-based. So such a shift is very useful. Therefore, I am discussing this, and so the religion that is practiced today is mostly 99+% based on the mythological books called Puranas. Not much, a little with Ramayana and Mahabharata. Rama is still there in the minds of the people. Rama is not replaced, whereas all Vedic gods are replaced. Now nobody worships Indra. Nobody worships. For example, Kavyakantha Ganapati Muni, he composed Indra Sahasranama Stotram based on Rigveda. How many people know that such a book even exists? And how many people do puja with Indra Sahasranama? They are busy with Lalita Sahasranama. And if they come to Vishnu Sahasranama, that itself is a glory. So generally they are busy with Lalita Sahasranama. Quite often in Vishnu Sahasranama also they pursue. But in India, we see a few other Sahasranamas, like Shiva Sahasranama is popular, etc. Therefore, the popular religion, the religion of the masses, as it is practiced today in India, it is almost entirely based on the Puranic literature. But one redeeming feature is, even the Puranic literature has some glory coming from the Vedas and Ramayana Mahabharata. That stream of Vedic vision flowing into Ramayana Mahabharata, the epics, it did not dry up. It flows into the Puranic literature also. That is the redeeming feature. If the that flow of thought from the Vedic literature, if it has completely dried up, now you do not have much to boast about the popular religion. But fortunately, that thought flows into the popular religion. What I mean when I say that is, a religion which is having a belief as its foundation, no doubt about it, but in addition to belief, it must have some philosophy and upasana, jnanam and upasana as part of it. They make the religion meaningful. Without jnanam, the religion becomes very mechanical and superstitious. And without bhakti, the upasana, the religion becomes very worldly, dry, and does not inspire anybody. That is how it becomes. It becomes very, very commercial, it becomes very dry, very worldly it becomes. Therefore, the jnanam and the bhakti, the upasana, they save the religion. They give some sanctity to the popular religion. Without jnanam and bhakti, the popular religion based on belief becomes entirely dogmatic and superstitious. That is not a desirable thing. Fortunately, the popular religion of India, of the Hindus, still has the glory of that bhakti and jnanam in it. That is one redeeming aspect of the popular religion. Now coming back to Ramayana, now you know where Ramayana sits. So Ramayana is in the epic, one of the two epics. Epics are in between Vedic literature on one side and Puranic literature on the other side. In between you have the two epics. And between the two epics again, Ramayana is leaning more towards Vedas, not so much towards the Puranas. Whereas Mahabharata, it leans more towards Puranas and less towards Vedas. You can see the evolution of religion, how it starts with Vedas and then comes into epics and then it becomes Puranas. This understanding of the historic and evolutionary aspect of the scriptural literature is very important in adjusting our own belief systems, our own practice of religion in our life. We have to make some adjustment there based on understanding. Or you want to keep it dogmatic the way you received from earlier generations? So I suppose not. So you have to make adjustments and you have to make a refinement so that the religion becomes more broad-based and more based more on knowledge and devotion, bhakti, than on belief and superstition and dogma. So keeping all these aspects in mind, study of Ramayana becomes very critical. I suppose I have to some extent sold you the importance of Ramayana. I hope you got the spirit of it. Then coming to Ramayana itself, Ramayana proper, people are not aware of Valmiki's Ramayana. That is a misfortune. They don't go to Valmiki's Ramayana. What mostly people know Ramayana as it is presented by Ramananda Sagar in his TV show. That is the Ramayana that people know, mostly. And in the North India, what is popularly called the cow belt, Ramayana is Tulasi. Tulasi Ramayana is a great scripture, great scripture. It has all the glory of Ramayana, but it doesn't fit, it cannot be said to be an epic. Tulasi Ramayana is not an epic. It fits into the Puranic literature, not into an epic. Because that evolution, where you move away from epic, itihasa, to Purana, so that evolution has already happened and you find it in a Tulasi. But having said that, I repeat that the Puranic literature, in particular Tulsi's Ramayana, so Ramacharita that is how it is called. It is the most glorious among all the Puranas, though it is not in Sanskrit. And it has to be converted into popular Hindi because it is written in a particular kind of Hindi called Vraja Bhasha, Ravadha Bhasha, which is more spoken, I suppose, a Maithili Bhasha. And those who know Hindi very well will not be able to make out easily. Even Kabir Doha is like that. But if you can make adjustment for that and convert it into popular Hindi, which is easily done, so just like Shakespeare's drama, if you take the Shakespeare's play, you will not be able to read it comfortably in the language which is used by Shakespeare. You have to make some changes and present the same thing in the English known to us in modern times. Otherwise, you will be put off by Shakespeare's language. That's why, interestingly, all the Shakespeare's plays are put in modern English, and the title given to this rendering is "Do Not Fear." Under that title it comes. Do not fear means you fear Shakespeare's English. Fear means you will not be able to make any progress. It becomes very arduous to read Shakespeare's English, but put it side by side with the modern version. Some great scholars have done it. You can read the play very comfortably. A similar thing has to be done in the case of Tulsi Ramayana also, and it is done. And so studying Tulsi Ramayana is a very joyous journey, no question about it. And if I have to put Tulsi Ramayana in Puranic literature, I will put it on the top, though it is not in Sanskrit. All other Puranas, they come only after Tulsi, including Bhagavatam. I do not hesitate to put Tulsi on the top, though it is not in Sanskrit, whereas all the other Puranas are in Sanskrit. So this is how we have to try to understand the role of Ramayana in the historic and evolutionary perspective of Hindu Dharma. So it is occupying the middle place, the epic, the first epic. By the way, what is an epic? Epic is a poem. I say poem. In America, they pronounce it slightly differently, but you stay with my pronunciation because I will not be able to pronounce the way you pronounce poem. It is neither poem nor poem. It is somewhere in between. And in Sanskrit, we don't have in between. We have either poem, P-O-E-M, poem, or poem, P-O-O-M, P-O-A-M, poem. But if I start saying poem, it sounds silly. So let me continue with my pronunciation, poem. You people say it in a very unique way by introducing a sound there in between which doesn't correspond to anything written anywhere in this world. So, namaskar. So, poem. So, Ramayana is a poem. Kavyam it is. And other than the Vedic literature, Ramayana is considered the very first poem. Adi Kavyam. Kavyam is a neuter, Napumsakalinga. So, and Kavi, Kaveha Karma Kavyam. So, what is produced by the Kavi, poet, is the Kavyam. So, interestingly, I heard people saying poet correctly. They don't say it as poem. They say it nice, poet. Anyway, so Valmiki is the poet, and it is Adi Kavyam, the very first poem in regular Sanskrit literature, keeping aside all the Vedas. Vedas are the humankind's very original poetry. Vedas are poetry, but they are converted into a religion. You know that? Vedas are not religious texts. In Veda, you have two parts. mantra and brahmana. Brahmana is not the caste. Okay, mantra and brahmana. And mantra is the poem. It is nothing to do with religion. It is a poem. Like it describes the rain-bearing cloud. It doesn't sound like religion, okay? It sounds like a poem only. But then the brahmana makes the mantra into religion. Like Gayatri mantra, it sounds like a poem, and but the brahmana makes it into a religion. Anyway, that is a different matter. I will discuss all these things as part of our study. And I will make progress in the text also. Hope to complete the 33 verses, 31 verses in these 2.5 weeks' time. So, Ramayana is Adi Kavyam. I submit to you that this is an occasion to understand about Ramayana. Because though we are not studying Ramayana proper, we are studying only a small part of Ramayana, but this provides an occasion to know something about Ramayana. It is very essential because there are countless misconceptions about Ramayana in this society. Hindus worship Rama as the God incarnate. That is wonderful. But the amount of misconceptions that people have about Rama and Ramayana is mind-blowing. It is really, sometimes you feel very put off, the kind of misconceptions that people have. So I will be mentioning all those things. And so this provides the occasion. And if I don't do it in this occasion, then they will not be mentioned at any other time, because this is the only context. So Ramayana is an epic. What is an epic? Epic is a poem. That is one first characteristic of an epic. A few things make a literature epic. A work is called an epic based on a few characters. And the first character is that it is a poem. So, being a poem, it is supposed to have a story, and of course Ramayana is a story. The most endearing feature of Ramayana is that it is a love story. That is what it is. But people take it as a religious text. You see, suppose you make it a religious text. Any description of the text in terms of love becomes heretical. You are not supposed to talk it like that, right? But the truth is, Ramayana is not a religious text. It is a love story. And the theme of Ramayana is love. Love is of two kinds. The love which progresses well, and a few obstacles come, but the obstacles are overtaken, and the love progresses, and it becomes a comedy. That is the love story. And then the sentiment, the rasa in such a comedy is called Shrungara. Shrungara rasa. Like you take Kalidasa's play, Abhijnana Shakuntalam, or Shakespeare's play, Merchant of Venice, etc. Or even other Midsummer Night's Dream, or The Twelfth Night, Shakespeare's. And in Sanskrit, of course, I mentioned Abhijnana Shakuntalam of Kalidasa. We can mention a few other works also, like Malavakagnimitram of Kalidasa again. And then a few other plays are there by great poets. And all of them have Shrungara as the primary sentiment, rasa. Because there are obstacles in the progress of love between the hero and heroine, and the obstacles are overcome, and there is the whole thing ends in a comedy. That is Shrungara. But the rasa, the sentiment in Ramayana is not Shrungara, it is Karuna. Karuna is some people translate it as pity. Pity is the sentiment. Or pathos is the sentiment. That is how it is described. Because, of course, it ends with the reunion of Rama and Sita, but all through the poem, the epic, a voluminous poem it is, all through the poem, the sentiment of pity or pathos, because the Sringara is obstructed, it was thwarted, it was aborted also. Therefore, the Sringara did not progress at all. It is getting cut off again and again and again and again. Therefore, all through the poem, throughout the 24,000 verses, the primary sentiment is not Sringara, it is Karuna only. There is a little Sringara at the very end of Balakanda, the first volume, when Rama gets married to Sita. But then Ayodhya Kanda begins, and it is Karuna. And they go to forest and about to settle down into a happy life, but then Sita gets kidnapped. And again Karuna. Kishkindha is Karuna, Yuddha is Karuna. Only it doesn't end as a tragedy, it ends as a comedy. But the sentiment is Karuna. Generally, people expect that if the sentiment is Karuna, it must end as a tragedy. But not in the case of Ramayana. It ends as comedy, but sentiment is Karuna. Why people expect it to be a tragedy if it is the sentiment is Karuna? Because of the influence of Shakespeare's plays. Because in Shakespeare's plays, where the sentiment is Karuna, like in King Lear, etc., King Lear, Othello, Macbeth, etc., the sentiment is Karuna, and they end as tragedies. Therefore, somehow people connect Karuna Rasa, the sentiment of pathos, with a tragedy. But Ramayana is an exception. In fact, in the Indian literature, there are no tragedies. In fact, a tragedy is a taboo. If you want to present Karuna Rasa, do it to the heart's fullness, to the content of the heart, you do it. But it should not end as a tragedy. It should end as a comedy. That is the rule. Mangaladini, Mangalamadhyani, Mangalantani, Kavyani, Prathante. That is a Smriti statement. The Maharshi advises the poets, begin with Mangala, have some Mangala. Mangala is auspiciousness in the middle, and conclude with auspiciousness, Anta. You have Karuna Rasa, Rani Rasa, to your heart's content in between, but it must not end as a tragedy. So Ramayana is not a tragedy. The point I am trying to make is, Uttarakanda, the 7th volume, is not part and parcel of original Valmiki's Ramayana. It is an extrapolation, and it is unscientific, that you take a poem and add something to it, you make something and put it to it, as though it is part and parcel of the poem. It is unethical. It is against the spirit of the literature, religious literature. And you see, we only know this in the world, we only know somebody takes material from a book but doesn't acknowledge and presents it as his own. Whereas in Indian literature, somebody creates some literature, a book by himself, and puts it as an attachment to Ramayana without mentioning his name. Now it gains currency as original Ramayana. You notice this discrepancy, this contradiction? So, on one side, people are picking up from great poems and presenting them as their own. People do that. In the lectures also they do that, as their own. Like you quote from Saint Paul or Saint Francis of Assisi and present it as your own. So instead of that, you make your own literature, write a book, and add it to Valmiki's Ramayana, and without mentioning that you have added it is your edition, without mentioning any name, and put Valmiki's name there. This is pointed out by scholars. This is a bane, a curse of Indian scriptural literature. And this curse is very much evident in the case of Ramayana, where Sita, going to the forest a second time, it is called Sita's Dvitiya Vanavasa. The second time she goes to the forest as a pregnant woman and gives birth to twins in the forest, etc. All of that is extrapolation. It is not part and parcel of Valmiki's Ramayana. There is a paper published in an important journal of philosophy in which 12 reasons are given why Uttarakanda is not a part of Ramayana. Therefore, we are looking at Valmiki's Ramayana, which is an epic consisting of 6 volumes, ending as a comedy with the coronation of Lord Rama and Sita coming back to Ayodhya, and Rama getting coronated, and then Rama Rajya, an ideal administration and governance established in the land of Bharat. That is where Ramayana ends. And therefore, my appeal to all of you is, if anybody asks the question, how come Rama could banish Sita, the pregnant woman, to the forest? If anybody asks that question, what you have to answer is, Uttarakanda, where all of that is described, is not part of the original Ramayana. It is an extrapolation, that to a very bad, unrealistic, unethical, and outright damaging extrapolation. You have to say only that much. What else can you say? So this point has to be made while talking about Aditya Hṛdayam. See, once I was asked to speak in a assembly by the head of Vyasashram, Yerpedu, Andhra Pradesh. Some of you must have heard the Malayala Swami established Vyasashramam, and the present head of that ashramam, he came to Hyderabad. He invited me and asked me to talk on Ramayanam. I told about Uttarakanda, and then he told me, these people should know this, because many people don't know, and they consider Rama's banishing Sita in forest while she was pregnant, 9 months old, 9 months of pregnancy, that they consider as a virtue of Rama, and they make an enormous effort to make it into a virtue. It is not a virtue. How can that be a virtue? But they try to make it into a virtue, and as they use all their skill of presentation of things in a distorted logic, and try to present it as a virtue, and thereby there is an enormous misconception in the society that Rama has abandoned Sita in the forest a second time, that too when she was pregnant. This misconception has done incalculable harm to the glory of Ramayana. Therefore, you should know that that is an extrapolation, and it is unethical and unauthentic. So we don't look at it. So our Ramayana begins with Balakanda and ends with Yuddhakanda. That is where Valmiki's Ramayana concludes. So now I have digressed into this Uttarakanda topic, but I was describing the epic. Ramayana is an epic. And so the first character of the epic is that it is a poem. And Ramayana is a great poem running into 24,000 verses. Epics are big in size. That is how an epic is. There is a storyline, but there are so many other things incorporated into the poem that the storyline will be there. It is like a scaffold. The storyline will be there, but it is something like a human body. which is a skeleton, and around the skeleton a lot of flesh, muscles and organs and blood, and then the main organ, namely the skin, are put in place. Thereby, a skeleton which doesn't look very good to look at really, but now when all these things are added, it looks very beautiful. The same thing with the poem also, the epic also. It is a storyline which is historic. The storyline is historic. That's why you cannot have an imagined story. Poets have the power to imagine. They have a very fertile imagination, and they can come out with a very beautiful story. Like Shakespeare, like Kalidasa, you can take all these great poets. But Ramayana is not an imagined story. It is a historic account. Just like Mahatma Gandhi lived in that land a few decades back, he moved around and he inspired the society. The same way, Rama lived as one of the one of the persons in that land, and he moved in that land. And then Sri Krishna also lived there. They are as historic as Mahatma Gandhi or Bal Gangadhar Tilak, like that. Therefore, the story is historic. That is one important aspect of epic. If the story is not historic, it is not an epic. It becomes a Purana, like Bhagavatam, etc. Devi Bhagavatam, regular Bhagavatam, Agni Purana, Vayu Purana, these are all not historic. They are stories only. And of course, mythological stories. Therefore, Ramayana is an epic, a poem, and the storyline is historic. But around the history, around the life story of Rama, Sita, and others, so many other things are added to it. Some of them are poetic descriptions of the nature, of the seasons, like Sharadrutu Varnanam, Varshartu Varnanam, the rainy season in India. It is described very elaborately. Like that, and then small stories are incorporated into the main account. Like that, it becomes quite big, consisting of 6 volumes. So, Balakanda, Ayodhya Kanda. So, Balakanda is the story of Rama's childhood. Ayodhya Kanda is the variety of events that happen in the city of Ayodhya, in Dasharatha's palace and around the palace. Then Aranyakanda, Rama is asked to go to the forest, kind of banished to the forest, and in the forest he lives there, under the life of Rama and Sita together with Lakshmana in forest. That is Aranyakanda. And then Sita is kidnapped in Aranyakanda itself. Then we come to Kishkindhakanda, where Rama meets Sugriva, and they become friends in a strategic friendship it is. And then the story moves forward. So Sugriva sends his armies to 4 directions in search of Sita, where she was kept by Ravana after kidnapping her. And finally Sundarakanda, where Hanuman goes to Lanka and finds Sita, comforts her, and assures her that Rama will come and fight with Ravana and get her liberated from the captivity. So that is Sundarakanda. And finally Yuddhakanda, where Rama arrives in Lanka, declares a war on Ravana, lays siege to the city of Lanka, a fort city it is, walled city, and then the battle takes place. And then finally Ravana was slain. Rama goes back to Ayodhya after 14 years of living in the forest, and he is coronated as the emperor of Bharat. That is the story. And Aditya Hṛdayam is the 106th canto of that Yuddha Kanda. It is coming from Yuddha Kanda. Just let me take a breath. So I am talking about the epic. So the one aspect of the epic is that it is a poem, and the historic, it is a historic poem, not an imagined poem, entirely historic. And then, secondly, an epic is a didactic poem. That is what it is. Didactic means it has a message to the mankind. That is the didactic aspect of the poem. So, the avowed purpose of Ramayana as a poem is to glorify the importance of dharma in people's lives. Dharma is righteousness. So, unconditioned adherence to dharma. That is what Ramayana stands for. Generally, people, when they are asked to follow dharma, you know what the excuse they give? When everybody else follows dharma, I will follow. What happens if I alone follow dharma? You see, once a king tells his minister, all the people of our kingdom is a city kingdoms, like Singapore. All our subjects are very honest, etc. He boasts. Then the minister said, you may not be right. You are exaggerating the situation. Therefore, then the minister puts a test. The king declares, everybody should contribute 10 ml of milk, because we have a function. To perform, we need lot of milk. Instead of putting all the burden on some people, we are giving opportunity to everyone to contribute 100 ml of milk. Let us say 100 ml. Everybody should contribute 100 ml of milk. And so he puts a big vessel there, and people should come in a queue and put their share of milk and go away. And so that is the test. And morning it starts, by afternoon it is concluded. And the entire population of the town put their share of milk into the vessel. And at the end, when the king opens the lid and sees, there is only water. No milk at all. Because everybody thinks all others are putting milk. Even if I put a little water, what will happen? No harm will be there. Nobody will know it. And this is the thought in everybody's mind. Therefore, everybody puts 100 ml water in it. And nobody puts any milk in it. So then the king understood. Oh, our people are very clever. So anyway, so means you adhere to dharma only when all others are adhering to it. Or when the policeman stands there with a lathi. Or when the king's power to penalize is presented forcibly. So you cannot escape. You will be punished. So then only people follow dharma. Otherwise they don't follow. But Ramayana, it glorifies an unconditional following of dharma, righteousness. Without putting any conditions, you adhere to dharma. That is the glory of Ramayana. And therefore, that is the message Rama gives to the world. Dharma is the soul of life, not artha and kama. People take artha and kama as the soul of life. No, not so. Dharma is the soul of life. That is the message of Rama. And Rama is also an ideal son, ideal brother, ideal king. And the social life and spiritual life means, in social life you need artha and kama, wealth and enjoyment of pleasures. That is social life. And dharma is the spiritual life. And both are wonderfully harmonized in Ramayana. And therefore, one has to submit oneself unconditionally to righteousness in life. That is the message that comes out very strongly from Ramayana to the humanity. In that sense, it is a didactical poem. Didactic means a message associated with very powerful message. That is the glory of Ramayana. And in Ramayana, an individual, an ideal individual is described. And Rama is that ideal individual. There are others also, but Rama stands as an exemplary, ideal individual. And the society is also described as ideal society. That is the Ramarajya. And then ideal administration, how the governance should be done by the king. All these are presented in Ramayana. That is the great epic. And what else is there as epic? So that is the poem. Then, as I told you, the Karuna Rasa is the primary sentiment in Ramayana. In fact, Ramayana begins with Karuna, and so the Valmiki goes to take bath in the river Tamasa, and then a Nishadaha, means a hunter, comes with bow and arrows, with his bow and arrows, and he kills a bird. Two birds are sitting, the male bird and female bird are sitting on the branch of a tree, while the Rishi is taking bath. The hunting person, he ignores the presence of the Rishi, he doesn't pay any attention, he is very contemptuous about it, he doesn't pay regard to the Rishi, he sees the Rishi, but still he goes ahead with his job of felling one of the birds. The male bird is felled, and the female bird remains. Manishada pratishthantva magamas shashvati samaha yat krauncha mithunadekam avadhi kamamohitam. The male bird is felled, the female is left helpless. And so, and then the poet was very much affected by this event, and his heart melts with sorrow for the helpless bird which is left on the branch, whereas the other bird falls dead on the ground. And so out of that sense of that emotion of sorrow emerges a verse. That's why it is called shokaha shlokatvamagataha. The shoka, the sorrow that he felt in his heart, the sense of pity that he felt in his heart very deeply, pity towards the bird which was felled, and also towards the helpless bird which was left crying on the branch of the tree. So that is the event, and the intense sorrow that he felt in his heart, it takes the form of a poem. Shokaha becomes shlokaha. Shoka shlokatvamagataha. And then the shloka comes. That is how Ramayana begins. So it begins in the sentiment of pathos, and it continues on and on like that. That is the Karuna Rasa. Therefore, Karuna Rasa is the primary sentiment. There are other sentiments, like a little Shrungara between Rama and Sita you see in one or two places, not much. Primarily Karuna only. And then in Rama-Ravana Yuddha, you see Vera Rasam, the prowess in the battlefield. That is also a sentiment that is presented. And the battlefield is described in all the gory details, which make it a bibhatsa rasa. The gory battlefield description itself is a rasa. The horrors and the gory of the battlefield. So like this, a few other rasas are there, but Karuna Rasa is the primary rasa. So there are some more details about the epic. I'll be talking about them in due course of time. Every day I will be mentioning a few of those epic things. But today we will take up the verse. We don't want to finish the class without taking up the verse. So there are two verses before you. They make one sentence. You have to carefully arrange the words in the form of a sentence. They are jumbled in the verse. That arrangement has to be carefully done. So it is not difficult. Even if you do not know much Sanskrit, you will be able to do it. because you are going to recite it also in due course of time. Therefore, you should be able to put the words in their proper place and make a cogent sentence. That also you should practice. Not difficult. So, in a sentence you have karta, karma and kriya. Subject, object and verb, right? That is how the sentence is constructed. So it is a single sentence, verse number 1 and 2 put together. And the subject is, you see, agastyā, that is the subject. And who is agastyā? ṛṣiḥ. Agastyā ṛṣiḥ. And he is bhagavān, means revered. Bhagavān is not God. But in popular mind, Bhagavan means God. Bhagavan is not God. Bhagavan is very revered. It comes from Upanishads. Because Ramayana is close to Vedic literature. And therefore the elements of Vedic literature, when you see that, oh, this is coming from Veda, like that you can recognize everywhere in the Ramayana. For example, the word Bhagavan comes from the Veda, adhihi bhagavo brahmeti. So that is the word Bhagavan, which is used in Vedic literature quite often. And so that comes here. And here, Bhagavan is not Rama. In Ramayana, Rama is not God. Rama is a human being. And I'll tell you one thing, you may be surprised to hear it. You may be a little disturbed, I don't know, but certainly surprised and amazed also probably. The idea is that you should think. That is the idea. But when presenting the fact, one should not hesitate, you know. We have to present the fact and it is for you to think. The word avatara, which is incarnation of God. Ava means below, down. Tara means coming. Means avatara translates as descending. Aroha is ascendance. Avatara, avaroha or avatara is descendance. So, avatara means descending of God. God is descending or God descends. What does it mean? It means God is above. God is not below. God is not among us. God is always above. Occasionally he comes down. This is the idea of God. This idea of God is entirely alien to Vedic literature. It is not there in Vedas. It is not the God of Vedas. Veda doesn't have one God, it has many gods, you know. But the very idea of Godhead or Godhead that is there in Vedas, it is totally nothing to do with the avatara. Avatara is an alien thing in the Vedic literature. Then coming to Ramayana, there is no word avatara in Ramayana. It doesn't exist. In Mahabharata, it doesn't exist. You see Gita. In Gita, you do not have the word avatara. Okay? Gita is Mahabharata, which is 3200 BC from now. Like Pharaoh's time. Gita is a Pharaoh's time. In Egypt, we have pharaohs. They are all 3000 BC, they start there. And that is when Mahabharata happened in India. And that is when Gita came. In Gita, you do not have the word avatara. Then Shankara, you take Shankara. Shankara is 2100 years odd back. So let us say 100 BC Shankara. Shankara gave a bhashya on Gita. Then there are so many commentaries came on Gita later, but Shankara is the first one. Because Shankara commented on Gita, everybody else commented on Gita. Otherwise, in the entire Mahabharata, there are so many parts where philosophy is discussed. And so there are so many sections in Mahabharata. They were not commented so elaborately by people, only Gita. Because Shankara has chosen to comment upon Gita. And he gave the status of a prasthana to Gita. And in Brahma Sutras also you find it. In Brahma Sutras, the word Bhagavad Gita or Gita doesn't come. It only comes as a smruti, the word. And Shankara takes the word smruti to mean Gita. Therefore, in the Shankara Bhashya, which is a commentary on Gita, the first commentary on Gita, you do not see the word avatara. What does it mean? The word is not there means what? The concept is not there. The language and the idea or the vision, they go together. So, for example, so much of the literature of computers, so many words of the computer language are not present 50 years back. For example, Java is not a word which is known 50 years back. Mouse, the way we know it, it was not existing in English literature. Even download is a new word in English literature. It was not there. Upload, download came from computers only. It was not there in the original age-old Oxford dictionary. You don't find those words. So many words, the computer people have given so many new words to English language itself. Because the ideas, as they come together with the language. Therefore, the idea of a God sitting above and occasionally descending, that is there only in India. In other places, God doesn't descend. He sits there only. He sends either his son or his disciple. Whereas in India, he descends himself. But all these ideas, either God descending himself or sending his son or his disciple to the earth to take care of the situation here, to improve the lot of human beings here. So this idea, which is very similar, sending son, is similar to himself coming. Something like that. This idea, it is alien to Shankara's vision. It is not there. It appears to have come into literature, in the Puranic literature, somewhere starting from 6th century BC. AD. 6th century of the Christian era. Means this idea of God descending as an avatara, it is there in the Hindu society for not more than 1200 to 1400 years. And it gained a lot of currency in the 11th or 12th century and then onwards. Therefore, Lord Vishnu of the Vaikuntha descending avatara as Rama is a later day conception. It has nothing to do with Valmiki's Ramayana. Absolutely nothing to do with Ramayana. So then how this conception came? Some scholars who subscribe to this avatara conception, they have made one or two sections, one or two chapters and incorporated into Ramayana. So Uttarakanda is an extrapolation and these one or two chapters, they are the interpolation. They suddenly appear inside the Ramayana, in Balakanda, in Yuddhakanda. In two places they appear. Nowhere else in between. In Balakanda, suddenly the idea of Vishnu descending from above to below comes as one chapter. And in Yuddhakanda, it again comes as one chapter. So, you see how much popular misconception could be. Now you understand. Therefore, Rama is not a descendant of God or an incarnation of God in that sense. In the Vedic vision, God is not above. God is among us, around us, and within us. That is the Vedic vision. Tattvamasi is the Vedic vision. If you understand the Upanishads correctly, the idea of avatara doesn't fit into Upanishadic wisdom. In the Upanishadic wisdom, you are a human being. Now you have two options. There is an animal in you. There is the divinity in you. Both are there in you. That's why normal man below, and the normal man goes down, takes the downward path, becomes the animal man. And the man uplifts himself. That is the language of Gita. So aroha, arudha, etc. Arurukshuhu. You want to uplift yourself. Atmanatmanam uddharet. Then you rise into the divinity which is already in you. Therefore, normal man can become an animal man. That is the example given by Ravana. Or he can uplift himself or grow into the divinity itself. That is Rama. So Rama is a human being. Hanuman, etc. are subhuman or humanoid, not animals. Humanoid. Ravana is anti-human. Animal man, and he is got only one interest to destroy the values of human existence by kidnapping others and all that. That is anti-human and destroying good people, etc. And then Rama is the superhuman to begin with. Human, superhuman in the sense that he follows dharma very strictly, adheres to dharma unconditionally. Therefore, he is superhuman. And because of his qualities of head and heart, he is the divinity itself. That is the way Ramayana has to be understood. Not God sitting in somewhere above suddenly descended as Rama. Then we remain as normal human beings only. We need not uplift ourselves. Then Rama cannot provide any message to us. He cannot inspire us because he is God, you know. Then if Rama is God, Sita also should be God. If Sita is God, then how come a Rakshasa can kidnap her? Therefore, Ravana did not kidnap real Sita. They have put an imagined kind of duplicate Sita, and Ravana has kidnapped the duplicate Sita. Like this kind of imagination has to be incorporated into it. All kinds of manipulation of the epic, manipulation, distortion. All of this you have to put into it to make Rama into a god, Rama and Sita into a god, and convert the whole poem into a make-believe story. That is done. All this is done. Very sad. It is a sad saga of the literature. But we have to put all that aside and understand Rama as a human being, a very fine human being, the most ideal human being, having here and there some weakness also. Now you need not justify. If Rama has committed an error, you need not justify it because he is a human being and it is human to err. Therefore, if you have any problem in Rama's actions here and there, that is not a problem at all. If it becomes a problem only when he is God. If he is a human being, then to err is human. Therefore, that is the way you have to understand. So now coming back to the verses, I have digressed, coming back. Karta is agastyō bhagavān ṛṣiḥ. That is the karta. Then who is the karma? Karma is rāvaṇaṃ. Do you see rāvaṇaṃ anywhere there? Upāgamyābravīdrāmaṃ. That is the karma. You have to come to the end of the second verse to get the karma. Rāvaṇaṃ is the karma. Then Rāvaṇaṃ is the second case. And all the words of the second case can be put together with Rāvaṇaṃ. Let us start the first one. Tatō yuddha pariśrāntaṃ. Tataha afterwards. I will tell you what is afterwards. So he is very much tired. He is exhausted in the battlefield. Rama. Tatō yuddha pariśrāntaṃ Rāmaṃ. That is how it connects. Okay? And samarē chintayāsthitam Rāmaṃ. So in the battlefield, Rama is very worried. He is very anxious. How to proceed? What to do now? What is the next step to be taken? He is utterly lost the way. Samarē, and he is worried, very anxious person. It sounds like our own lot. Okay? Who lost the direction, don't know what to do next. How are we going to move in life? And totally lost in the life. So something like that. Samarē chintayāsthitam Rāmaṃ. And then what else Ramam? Rāvaṇaṃ yuddhāya samupasthitam rāvaṇaṃ agratō dṛṣṭvā samarē chintayāsthitam. So he is looking at Ravana. Ravana is in the distance. He is all preparing himself for the battle with Rama, the final battle royale, the final battle. And he came very well prepared, Ravana. Ravana is the villain and he is a despot. He is interested in only creating trouble and sorrow to Rama. He has nothing else to achieve for himself. He is a despot. So, and that such a Ravana, who is an anti-human, who is a villain, who is a very vile person, he is ready for the battle. He is a very powerful enemy and he is standing there in the distance. And Rama looks at him and becomes very anxious how to deal with this enemy. That Rama. Okay? Now, let us say the Karta. What is the Karta? Let us say bhagavān agastyah ṛṣiḥ. That is the Karta. You know Karta means? Subject. That is the subject. Now we will say object. 1, 2, 3 like that. Okay? Tatō yuddha pariśrāntaṃ. That is one. Very much exhausted in the battle. That is the one. Then second, yuddhāya samupasthitam rāvaṇaṃ agratah dṛṣṭvā samarē chintayāsthitam. That is the second. Okay. What is the second? Ravana has come well prepared for the battle and he is waiting there to confront Rama. And Rama looked at him from the distance and became very anxious. That is the second. Rāmaṃ. So, such a, that is this object. Ṛṣiḥ Rāmaṃ. Then put the other words together to make a sentence. Abravīt. So, Rishi Agastya told Rama. Okay, said to Rama. You got it? Karta karma kriya. Like what? Agastya talked to Rama. What kind of Agastya? Rishihi bhagavān, very revered sage Agastya. And what are the adjectives of Rama? What are the attributes of Rama? Tattō yuddha pariśrāntaṃ. He was very much tired in the battlefield. And also, yuddhāya samupasthitam rāvaṇaṃ agratō dṛṣṭvā samarē chintayāsthitam. Okay? You got that a bit long. Rāmam. That is Rama. Abravīt. Okay? Let us say Agastyah Rāmam Abravīt. Got it? Now, how is Agastya? Let us say Bhagavān Rishihi. That is Agastya. And how is Rama? One. Tato yuddha pariśrāntaṃ. That is one. Second, yuddhāya samupasthitam rāvaṇaṃ agratō dṛṣṭvā samarē chintayāsthitam. That is the second. Rāmam. Abravīt. You got the sentence? You have to do it carefully. Otherwise, what you do? You put all these things to Ravana. Samarē chintayāsthitam Rāvaṇaṃ. No, Ravana is not worried. He is a despotic warrior. He is not worried. It is Rama who is anxious. It is Rama who is worried. It is Rama who is exhausted. Shrantam, pariśrāntaṃ. Totally exhausted. Not Ravana. Ravana only ready to fight. He is just waiting there. That is how karta karma kriya. Now there are only one or two words to be fit into the sentence and finish the sentence. So, to talk to Rama, Agastya has to come near. Upagamya means having come near. He comes near and talks to Rama. Abravīdrāmaṃ. So why Agastya is there in the first place? How come he is present there? So raṇam dṛṣṭumabhyāgatō. That is Agastya. You say that also to Agastya. Raṇam dṛṣṭumabhyāgatō agastyah. So Agastya came to see the battle from the sidelines. That is Agastya. And he came together with a few other gods also. Daivataiścha samāgamya. Together with a few other gods. You got it now? So Agastya Maharshi, very revered, he came to see the battlefield from the sidelines, and he is accompanied by a few gods, devatas. So in the Ramayana, there is a lot of supernatural element. That is the poem, you know. The historic story is there, but around the story, a few supernatural elements are added. That is the poetic license. Therefore, Agastya Maharshi came there. He wanted to watch the battle from the sidelines, and he is accompanied by a few devatas. Daivataiścha samāgamya. And now he is addressing Rama. What is the condition of Rama? Very much exhausted. Tataha means after all these days of battle. So he has to slay Indrajit, he has to slay Kumbhakarna. All those great warriors were all slain, and he is very much exhausted. And now comes the primary enemy, the enemy number one, that is Ravana, who is well prepared, waiting there for the battle, and by looking at him from the distance, Ravana is very anxious. And he is I am not saying frightened, because chintayāsthitam. Chinta is very worried. Very worried. That is the Rama. And Agastya looks at the whole situation. Something has to be done. Rama has to be guided properly. Otherwise, the whole thing may turn against Rama. It is possible. And how Agastya can allow that to happen? Rama has to win. He followed dharma. Ravana has to be punished. And therefore, Rama cannot give up in this last part of the battle. He cannot give up. So, he has to stand and fight. He has to get that enthusiasm and draw from the reserves of energy from the body and mind and face the worst enemy. He has to do that. And so Agastya has to support him. So this is the context in which Aditya Hṛdayam is presented before us. In a way, it resembles our life, in a way, symbolically. We'll be discussing all these aspects from tomorrow onwards. Om Purnamidam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.